Hey, welcome to the Marketing Perspective. I'm excited about this episode today because we are digging into a terrific topic, trademarks and copyrights. Now, you've developed this terrific logo and brand, unique to you, but is it protected? This is an ongoing challenge that I've witnessed through the years, and issues happen more often than you think. One example I have is a bank we were working with some years back. We improved upon their brand, modernized them into this century. Yes, they were old-fashioned and old white guys in suits in a boardroom that was happy the way it was. But we finally got them to a place of it was current. They were bringing in a younger audience, which was great. That's what they wanted. And then about 6 months later, one of their local competitors launched their campaign. And ironically, it looked exactly like the client that we represented. I mean, all the colors, the shapes, the actual ads, with the exception of the name of the bank, they looked exactly alike. So of course, as the agency, so we go to the client and say, hey, look what we found. And they didn't want to go after it. And I didn't understand why. So if I haven't shared this before, when we do something for a client, if it is us, they own the assets, everything. Once it's paid for in full, they own them. So we turned around and said, this is yours. And they said, well, you can go after them. I said, no, we can't. It's your asset. And I said, why would I want to go and fight another bank that's not a client? And it was a little bit of a tit for tat, back and forth for a few minutes. And then they realized, okay, well, we don't want to go after them, and we're just going to change everything. I was like, that's insane. I was like, first, you're going to pay a lot more money. I don't want you to do that. I really think that you have a case here. Talk to your attorneys. And they hadn't gone ahead and copywritten, at least, or trademarked anything. So they were, down the creek without a paddle kind of a thing. And we did wind up changing everything, and life went on. We parted ways with that client about a year later. You can probably imagine why. So that's one example. Another quick example that I've seen way too often is when a new brand launches and then realizes another company in a different state has their exact name, and worse, already owns the URL. So in some cases, the biz will change and amend that URL to keep the name. If this company decides to expand, franchise, or otherwise, they will eventually run into major brand issues. And additionally, right out of the gate, they will also have SEO issues, and we'll continually be competing with the simpler URL that's their own name. That is a challenge. One more example, taglines. A unique tagline can be a real challenge to develop, but once you have it, it is yours. You want to own it and not worry about somebody next door or across the state or in another state that literally took it. And it may not be a big deal for you if you're a small company, but if that small company starts to evolve and grow, become a bigger company, because you've got great marketing, you're really in a challenge now, because either you have to let go of that, because chances are they probably already protected theirs, or you have to come up with something new, which also can be a challenge. As you're growing and your brand is known for something, now you have to go and do something different because you didn't do this out of the gate. Okay, so now one more example, which makes me think of it. Content. Businesses steal, well, we'll just say borrow for a long period of time, content all the time from other businesses, especially if they're in different markets. That is a really common thing. How can you protect this? Well, we'll get into that on the show when I bring my guest on. But first, there's also some plagiarism checkers, like just web tools that you can use. If you use Grammarly for editing your content, Grammarly also has a plagiarism plugin that you can use. And there's other sites as well. There's one called Dupli Checker, D-U-P-L-I Checker, which is a great one. It's probably one of the top ones I would recommend. There's also one called Siteliner, which is great. There's like 15, 20 of them out there that are the easier ones to utilize. Basically, you take a paragraph, you plug it in, it does its search, and it comes back with information. And you will be surprised at what you find. More times than not, somebody is using some of your content, word for word. So now that you realize some of the ways that your brand could be compromised, and I hope that you're realizing it, and it's more common than you think in these types of examples, I want to bring on a very special guest today, Taylor Davidson from Cobb Law, which is here in Nashville. Hi, Taylor.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It has been a very long week, and it's only Wednesday. Let's put it that way.
I could not agree more.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a full moon in some part of the world.
I was talking about this with our managing partner just the other day, I think. He was saying, is this Mercury in retrograde or a full moon or something going on? Because there's something in the air right now.
Yep. Everybody I know, it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it could be the political climate and the business climate outside our walls. It's possible people are starting to get antsy, but what? It's
just been a month.
Right. I'm really glad we connected because I have a feeling we will be talking very soon about things other than trademark law.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's why we're here today. We're talking about trademark law. So let's ease into this.
Yeah.
Please tell everyone who you are and what you do at Cobb Law.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Taylor Davidson. I am a Tennessee licensed attorney at Cobb Law Group. I'm one of our associate attorneys, and I specialize in a lot of business law and business representation, and that, of course, includes trademark protection and brand protection for our business clients. So I am registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office to file trademarks on behalf of our clients, and I've filed several and had several approved in my career. So, representing small businesses and helping them grow and protect their brand and really get off on the right foot, both legally and from just a general business perspective, right? That's my passion. That's really what I love to do.
Awesome. I've worked with some trademark attorneys over the years, just being in my profession for so long. And, there's some good ones and some bad ones. And I'll tell you, when we first met, because Taylor and I met a while ago, I'm very excited about our relationship because I think that you're really going to help some of our clients. There's some, you said associate, you're an associate attorney, and I would not have known that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're already a rock star, so you're going to do great things in this market and beyond. Trademark law is a very niche area, and in my opinion, it's underutilized by many businesses. Why do you think that is?
I think it's just a lot of businesses aren't aware that there's these kind of protections out there, right? And we all hear, trademark this, copyright that, but no one really knows what that means.
Right.
Right. And I think it's underutilized because people, maybe don't understand the full scope of what they can gain by going through a trademark process, either on a state side or the federal side. There's basically two types of trademark protection. And I just think it's just a lack of knowledge, right? And it's just something that I bring up to clients and they say, wow, I never even thought of that. And that's kind of the benefit of, speaking to professionals, getting other input and advice is we can, use our experience to guide you on ways that, we, in our experiences, it's in the best interest of your business. So,
the most times that I see the mistake occur is when a company is starting a new brand. If they're already up and running, if they're starting to grow, the conversation is happening that they're thinking about it or somebody is telling them they should protect themselves if the agency is worth their salt. But the new companies, they think, well, I'm a small company. I'm just a startup. My vision for this is probably not beyond this market. I'm not really worried about it. But then they get to a point, wow, this is something I can repeat and I can either be a franchise or I do want to expand into another state. And then they bump into the problems and they start seeing, well, that somebody either has their name or their URL or their tagline or their content, or there's so many variables that come up. Would you say that's kind of
Absolutely. And, I work with a lot of new businesses, right? The formation stage, getting them up and running. And that's usually when we start the trademark conversation, just like you mentioned, because the sooner we can start protecting this new brand, right? The sooner we can get applications in before there's an issue, it's going to resolve those issues down the long run, right? Because when it comes to trademarking, it's all about who's first to file, right? Who is going to be the first to submit that application into the office? If you're the first one, you are guaranteed protection. If someone else beats you to the punch, you missed out on that opportunity, right? And so if that's something we can do right when we're starting your initial formation stage and while you're kind of getting your feet on the ground, it's going to benefit you in the long run.
Right. I'll confess, we made that mistake when we opened our doors, and So nobody within the United States, they use variations. That somebody uses Media Vision, or Media Vision Advertising as a firm, or somebody did Vision Media. You're so unique. You're so you're so original. But abroad, like around the world, like in India, there's 2 or 3 companies that use our specific name. Now they can't get the URL.
Yeah, of course.
And we have a whole series of them. But they're using it. And somebody has MVA, and whoever it is that owns MVA, by the way, you have it parked, you're not using it, let's talk.
Yeah.
Because what the what? And, holding out for millions and millions of dollars is just old school, and it's not going to happen. And there's actually laws against that now, depending on what state you're in. So that's another episode. Yeah. Okay. So to get us back on, we're of the same mindset that even though this is niche, it's underutilized, it's a common problem. What should a business consider when they're building a new brand?
You want to be unique, right? That's going to be absolutely crucial, because the more unique you are, the easier it's going to be for either the state, right? Here in Tennessee, it's our Secretary of State who kind of approves state trademarks. It'll be easier for them to approve. Or if we're talking a federal trademark, it's going to be easier for the federal officer to approve, correct? So it's most important, certainly, to consider uniqueness. And you want to make sure also, of course, to work with a brand agency who can design a logo that's catchy. And we're not running into issues where we're overutilizing certain colors that may cause, issues for you down the line. Uniqueness really is ultimately the most important factor, I believe, when it comes to filing a trademark.
So let's talk more about uniqueness. When you said, I get it as far as overusing a color, especially certain colors. Same thing with font and things like that. But what about the actual name itself? Are you talking unique as far as the name? Obviously, because they can't. Okay, so how do they know?
Especially here in Tennessee, right? You can't have 2 businesses filed under the same name, right? They won't let you do that. When it comes to trademarks are generally protecting their logos, right? They're going to be images, which includes words, right? Words are included inside those images. But the name itself, it's part of the trademark, but it's not the sole, key behind the trademark. For example, we once had a client who they were trying to trademark a logo, and the logo is just basically a word, right? It's just their business name. And the font they used was not unique enough. They didn't use enough unique colors. The name was not particularly unique. And we've refiled this trademark several times, and every single time it got rejected, because you cannot just use a basic name and a black font in a simple font and expect the trademark office to say, yeah, that's unique enough in commerce, that warrants trademark protection.
Right.
You have to meet certain statutory requirements, and just using a black word in a font that's not Times New Roman is just not going to work, right? They're not going to approve that.
Right.
I know it's
funny when
it is funny.
Somebody outside of my industry speaks my language, and it just makes me giggle.
Well, I mean, I'm just, we explained this to them multiple times. This is going to get rejected by the trademark office. And guess what? They spent thousands of dollars resubmitting applications, and every single one of them got rejected.
Wow. So the word also wasn't unique. But if the word was unique, they may have gotten away with black and a simple font.
Maybe, right? It just... I'm not going to name names as to what their word was, but it was just a simple word, and again, that's just not enough, right? Right. You can have a simple word as your kind of in your logo, because that's your brand name, maybe, but your actual trademark logo has to be unique as well. You've got to have other colors in there, other elements, something else to make it stand apart, to warrant that protection. There
was a reason that Google created Google. The word is unique. It didn't exist. It was brilliant. When it first came out, people were like, Google, what the heck is that? What does that mean? Well, now we all know what it means. Now it's almost a verb, right? Strong brands become that over time. So the mindset of coming up with something that's truly original is becoming even more important, because try to do a name on a new brand and try to do 1 or even 2 words. alone and own the URL, the .com. I mean, you can get variations, but to own the .com of one or two words is almost impossible because almost everything has been used. Or if it's not being used, somebody bought it and parked it and is doing something which is a great practice, and we hate it. So I totally hear what you're saying. That's very good advice, especially for new businesses. So that's a new brand. Let's talk about existing brands. Same thing, same scenario where maybe they're 5 or 6 years in business, they're established in a market, they never took the exercise of trademarking or copywriting anything. In their backyard, they own their assets, within the state. They obviously, and they own their name, they're incorporated, they have a URL that they like, and somehow it worked out for them. But without that protection, what scenario can happen beyond their backyard?
Yeah, I mean, we file and form their name here in Tennessee, but that doesn't stop someone over just upstate in Kentucky from forming a business with the exact same name, filing it with the Kentucky Secretary of State's office. They're not going to check with the Tennessee Secretary of State to see if there's a conflict. And they can start doing business under the exact same name. They could copy a logo if you haven't trademarked it. Or let's say you've only trademarked it with the Tennessee Secretary of State, right? You never trademarked it with the United States Trademark Office. They can go and file their own trademark with the Kentucky Secretary of State. And then all of a sudden, you've got a business who stole all of your hard work, all of your branding, even your logo, and just start doing business upstate just because you never filed that trademark application with the United States Trademark Office.
That scenario is just...
It hurts.
Pertinent, right.
But it could happen. It's totally legal, right?
Yeah,
and that's
right.
And people can get really upset about that, and there's nothing I could do. Right? They could come to me and say, this person stole all my stuff. I'm like, where are they located? They're up in Kentucky. Did you file a federal application? No. And I say, I don't really know what to do now. There's nothing I can do.
So I know it takes time to secure a trademark. Once a business officially files, they have it on record that they're at least in the process. So if they have beat the other company to the punch, at the end of the day, they win no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as, right, because we always say first to file, right? Because it can take up to a year and a half almost to get these final applications approved.
Right.
But once you've filed and it's in the system and they start doing their attorney checks, right? If anybody files after you, they'll go through that same process, right? They'll start getting their attorney checks and they'll get flagged. We'll say someone filed 2 months before you, basically with the same brand, and they beat you to it. And there's no people who filed before, them, that would cause a conflict. That way, that means they're going to get the trademark. You're going to get booted because someone else beat you to it.
Is there a scenario where the one that filed first, they wind up not getting their trademark, but the other one files anyway and gets it? Is that possible?
Ooh, I would hope not, right? Because it ultimately is up to the reviewing attorney in the patent office, right? And from my experience, they're all very detail oriented and they know their jobs very well, right?
Okay.
They are very skilled at their jobs. And the patent office has a very detailed database, which actually is public record. You can go on and search, trademarks and patents and things like that. And I trust their systems. I kind of have to, right? I think my job goes out the window if I don't trust their systems and trust that, what they're doing is offering adequate protections to the brands that we file trademarks for. It would baffle me if a situation like that occurred, right? Because it means that there was some kind of slip up somewhere internally, right? Or it could just be maybe they filed under a different, what's called service mark classification, right? Which is basically what are you using your logo for in commerce? Maybe they filed in a different one, and for some reason that different service mark classification granted them approval, while the one we used maybe didn't. Maybe they're lying about what their service mark classification is. I don't know, right? There's just all kinds of different factors that could go into play in a situation like that. I've never seen it happen, and it would be a quite unusual situation if it did.
Well, so first to file.
Yeah, first to file. Yeah.
First to file. If you take
Nothing else from that, first to file.
First to file.
Yes.
Get it in the process. All right. Well, you heard some of the, before we brought you onto the show, you heard a few of the examples that I brought up. Do you want to speak into any of those?
Yeah. So the one about the bank, right? I think this ties in well to what we were just discussing, this first to file situation, right? because that bank ran into a problem, right? They did not file a trademark with the United States Patent Office. And therefore, another brand was able to pick up basically everything they were doing and use it to their advantage. And there was nothing that they could do about it. And I think that's just a real life example of the importance of securing these kind of protections for your brand early on, so you don't get 5-6 years down the line and have to scrap everything and start over again.
Right. Well, in that example, the name was protected. It was the brand assets.
Okay.
So all the visuals, any of the ads, the graphic elements that complement that brand
Absolutely.
were literally just, including the font, which was a very specific font. And you're saying that if they had trademarked that, there was it would have been protected.
Absolutely. I mean, because trademarks are images, right? And we can trademark just about any image. And if you give me an image that you're using in commerce, right, that you're actively using in association with your brand in commerce, we can have multiple images owned by a single entity, right? The corporation itself is the corporation, that's the name. But as far as your images and your actual visual elements, I mean, we can trademark as many of those as you want. Can get expensive, but we can keep doing it. And that prevents anyone else from using those images and using those visuals.
Got it. Well, I'm asking for multiple reasons. One, for my own interest. So when we build a brand for a client, it's not just the logo. Once the logo is approved, there's the brand assets. And we create a style guide. So here's the brand and here's the assets. And it's probably a 8 to 10 page document that also has the social post templates, and this is what the ads look like, and this is how your logo is going to be used, and it's all standardized. So we would want our client, assuming they are not protected, to take that and go protect it.
Yes.
And you could take that document, and I mean, I'm sure it's more than just the logo, so that it would be a little bit more expensive than just filing the logo.
Yeah.
So do you have to separate the assets out when you file?
A little bit, right? We can file multiple images, right? But the key thing here is that they're going to have to each be unique in some way, right? So if it's just one image that's basically variations, I had this issue come up recently where basically a company it's the same logo, but in the same colors used in each image, but kind of flip-flops and inverse as it goes, right? I could only file one of those images, right? The one he's mainly using, because each one, it ran into a conflict with himself, right? It would be too similar to his own other logos, right? So the trademark office would say, no, that's too similar to this other one. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you've got one image you're using and you're just kind of flip-flopping the colors based on, if you've got a black background, so you flip it to a white, or white, flip it to black.
We do that all the time,
right? It's the same image, right? At the end of the day, you're using the same colors, it's the same font, it's the same logo. So I would just pick, I'm like, what's your primary? And I would pick that one, and that's the one I would file. But let's say you're using a couple different logos, or you got a couple different things going on, or a couple different visual elements that are unique, right? They're not just the same flip-flopped inverse colors. Those are things that we can file multiple applications for and make sure they're protected.
Okay. Another example there could be a larger company that has divisions underneath them. The division is unique.
Absolutely. That's a great example, right?
Or verticals, that they have a vertical that, this is totally separate from the brand. We're going to give it its own identity.
But we're still going to own the trademark to it.
Correct.
But here it's got its own logo. Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And that's something that actually that same company has. They've got kind of a parent company, and they've got a couple different other businesses going on underneath it, and each has got a different logo, and we can file logos under that one company. So that company owns 3 or 4 trademarks, but they're all different. They're all doing different things.
We love companies like that. Oh my gosh, they're very marketable. Okay, so you heard my stories. Do you have a story that you would want to share, that this was great or this was horrible?
My story, I guess, was just that one about the simple word, right? You can't trademark a word like that. It's not going to work out for you. You can't just give me something in just a simple font and a black and white word and expect the trademark office to approve it. It is, in no world is that ever going to happen. So
it sounds like you're still twitching from that one.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So my hard question, I always have one, my challenge for today. Can a color be trademarked?
I'm so glad you asked that, because actually, yes, a color can be trademarked, but it's a very rare occurrence, right? you have to basically prove to the trademark office that this color is so widely recognized and so well known that it deserves to not be used by any other company in existence in the United States, and that you deserve that kind of protection. And I think we talked about some examples of this, right? Tiffany blue,
right?
Coca-Cola red.
That's right.
Like these are colors that are internationally recognized at this point.
Correct.
And those are the kind of colors that warrant trademark protection. You just using a certain kind of green in your logo in your small business here in Tennessee. I know it's special and it means a lot to you, but it's just not enough to warrant trademarking that particular color.
So my understanding of that, so the first half of my career was all national work. Mm-hmm. And what I understood that to be was you could not use it within the application if it was within the same industry. Mm-hmm. Like another jeweler, for example, could not use Tiffany blue.
Absolutely.
But the blue, if I was working with a manufacturing company, for some reason they wanted that soft pale blue, they could use it as an accent because there's no conflict at all.
Yeah, and this is where I kind of mentioned earlier, there's the service mark classifications that you have to include when you're filing a trademark, right? This is why I need to know in detail what a business is doing. What are you using this logo for in commerce, right? Because I have to be specific when I file the application to make sure I'm filing under the correct subcategories and classifications or multiple classifications, because that's where the differentiation is going to occur, right? Especially when it comes to color and name and logo design. Two companies have a very similar logo, but they're doing two totally different things. There's no likelihood of confusion because the trademark office sees they were filed under completely different service mark classifications, right? And I think that's where the color issue comes in as well, right? A manufacturing company can use a Tiffany blue color because they're in no way filing under anything related to jewelry services.
Right. So one question, we haven't touched on this yet, I kind of brought it up in the beginning, is content. Mm-hmm. You don't want, like, body copy content is not something you would trademark, in my opinion. But key content, whether it's a catchphrase or even a paragraph of information that is genuinely unique, is that something that you would consider trademarking for a company? I
would consider a copyright for something like that,
okay, so
right? So trademarks are kind of our images, right? And the copyright's going to be our written word.
So you can't trademark. What about a tagline?
A tagline, you may be able to, right? Especially if it's in a particular font, and it's only used in certain designations in commerce. That's kind of a fine line between whether that's going to be a copyright filing or it's going to be a trademark filing.
Okay. So that's
and it just kind of, it's case by case, and I would have to look at it and double check with the regulations on it and make sure, which do I think is going to be a better, filing a copyright for this or filing it under a trademark.
Okay. So what I imagine happens in a business is the reason they don't one of the reasons they don't trademark is costs. Mm-hmm. That's probably number one. And maybe there's some other iterations that you may have come across over time, but I think it's price.
I think I have to agree with that.
Yeah. But from everything that we're talking about, it almost seems invaluable. This could cause major issues and much more money down the line if they don't do it.
Absolutely. I mean, so as far as cost, the application fee, it's $350 per service mark classification, right? If you add more classifications, it's $350 per, right? And I mean, maximum, if you do two classifications, that's $700, and then you pay your attorney legal fees. I mean, the couple $1,000s you spend to do this right I can't imagine that not being worth it down the line, right? I mean, this is can go into your operating budget and say, this is part of what we're going to factor into getting formed, right? This is something we're just it's part of our budget. We've got to get this taken care of. And, spending a couple $1,000s up front to avoid tens of $1,000s down the line to frantically secure your assets, it just makes sense.
I totally agree. And I'm almost at the point, we've never done this, but my firm owns the budget of the clients that we serve, basically. Mm-hmm. So I almost want to put it in as a line item when it comes down to the logo and the brand assets, and just put it in there to see, a ballpark number, just to see if it's okay. And then, hey, it's already budgeted and it's in the marketing budget. You can take it from there.
Exactly.
Especially when it's a decent size account and they do have the finances to do it correctly. There's mom and pops that come out of the gate and like every dime is important. And I get that. This is just really important, especially if your vision is this is going to be a larger company down the line. I actually see the issue more times than not in business.
Absolutely.
So it was interesting because I learned something today because so trademarking is more about the visual, and copywriting is more about the written word.
Absolutely.
So I thought a trademark could encompass the whole thing, but it probably doesn't.
Yeah, because the trademark, you're required to submit a visual element when you file your application, right? That's
Right.
part of the application is the visual element. That's why I say trademarks are usually used for logos and these visual elements, right? Copyrights, we think, it's written word, it's publications, it's books, it's novels, it's magazines, it's blog posts. Like those are things protected under copyright law. And they're very similar and they're intertwined in a lot of ways, but they are different, right? There's differentiations there.
And trademark covers the entire U.S.
Yes, covers the entire U.S.
Copyrights also, or no?
It's under, this is all under United States copyright and trademark law, right? When we're speaking outside of the United States borders, just about every country has their own version of copyright or trademark laws, right? And if you're going to do business there or expect to market in those other countries, you're going to have to comply with that country's trademark or copyright laws, whether that means filing a trademark or a copyright in that country in order to secure brand protection there, or sometimes you may run into a conflict, right? There could be a company out there in that other country that has a very similar logo to yours doing a very similar thing. And, sometimes we see companies have to develop different logos or different brands for each country that they do business in because there's a conflict that exists. And that's part of the expense of expanding to do international business, right? But for some companies, it simply makes sense. Or they're just unique enough and it doesn't really matter to them, right? They can easily go get that trademark protection in other countries without having to change their brand too significantly. Right.
We have come across that in the past, so I wanted listeners to have the clarity of all that. So thank you for sharing it. Is there anything else you want listeners to take away from today that you can think of?
Goodness.
We covered a lot pretty quickly.
We did cover a lot pretty quickly. I would certainly encourage, this is something, I guess, advice that I give to all business owners, right? Because that's, I imagine, who is primarily listening in today, are business owners. You want to make sure you garner the right team around you. And that includes, the right brand agency, the right, accounting work, right? Someone to crunch your numbers for you, the right people, the right legal team to give you good sound legal advice. And all these people work together to make sure your business is going to be successful. So that's just always my general advice, is to make sure you build that right team with people that you can trust and you have your best interests at heart. And from there, you're only going to be set up for success.
That's great advice. Happens in my world too. There's so much bad marketing out there. I cannot tell you. It's so offensive. So closing thoughts. Well, I have one more question before I even wrap it up. Why did you choose trademark law?
Well, it comes into a business law, right? I love working with businesses, and it's just one of those things that businesses need help protecting their brands, right? That's just part of being a business attorney, right? You're going to have to be versed in trademark law. And it's really not too complex of a pathway once you understand it. Right. It's pretty simple, right? I get to speak with these businesses and talk about what their business is, what they use their brands for, what their vision is for the future. And that's what I love to talk to businesses about, right? What's their vision for the future? And I love just hearing people's passions and the different things that they do. I feel like I've spoken to so many interesting individuals with just incredible business plans and business designs, and they do just the most amazing work. And just giving them the opportunity to protect that, it makes what some people may call boring quite interesting, because, I know what I'm doing for these businesses, and, I'm really doing something that I know is going to help them. So
thank you. That was good. I want to make sure that, let me be shameless for a second. How can our listeners reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're located here in Tennessee, we specifically serve the Nashville area, the greater Nashville area, basically all of Middle Tennessee. We have an office in Hendersonville and in Donaldson, and we also have an office out in Franklin. So kind of split up between, north, central, and south of Nashville. You can reach us. Our main office number is 615-649-0049. And we offer quite a bit of legal services. You can check us out online at cobblawtn.com. Check out our website and all the different legal services that we offer. And, if there's something on there that fits a need that you have, we would be honored to speak with you and see how we could help you out.
So the URL is cobblawtn.com.
Yes, cobblawtn.com.
Why is it not just coblaw.com?
So I think there's a Cobb Law group. There's a coblaw.com out in, I think, Georgia that does that construction law. So that's...
Oops.
Yeah.
So... Is this a little
Example
bit of
right there, yeah.
cobbler? Doesn't right. Now I'm not putting her on the spot. I just want everybody to know, because as an ad agency, we if I could hire another ad agency to advertise us, I would. But it would be such a big faux pas. You just don't do that in the world, So probably the same thing, but maybe
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but again, we're specific to Tennessee. We're all licensed, like attorneys. We're only licensed in certain states, and it is a little funny, right? Because I can Google Cobb Law Group sometimes, and we've fixed this issue, right, with search engine optimization and stuff like that. But it would pop up that construction group out in Georgia, so which is a little entertaining for a time. But if you're in Tennessee, make sure you look for the group here in Tennessee. So
yeah, and if you didn't catch it in the beginning of the show, I touched on it for like 2 seconds, but that can be a big issue when it comes to marketing a business, because now the SEO has to be optimized in such a way that you're working around the problem. So, note to self, let's avoid that problem to begin with. The amount of money that Taylor was talking about that could happen is not just legally. It also is a marketing problem down the line. And tens of thousands of dollars can be spent to work around a problem if you don't do it right in the beginning. So we highly recommend whoever you're using, even if not Cobb Law, if you're on the other side of the state and you don't feel comfortable or you don't know them. And if you don't know them, I will happily introduce you if you know me. They're a great law firm, and Taylor is really a spitfire, and I would highly recommend them. And we're really looking forward to do some business together. So please reach out to them. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me, and I can get the information to Taylor, or you can reach out to her directly, and she gave you the information here today. The show will put that information on the site, so you'll have all that. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. I want to wrap up today. I want to thank you, Taylor, for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been great. Just love having conversations about this. So.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Taylor, she drove here in bad traffic and bad weather. And
it's Nashville. It's always bad traffic.
That's right. Don't give the poor state a black eye now. Come on. Tourism has enough of a challenge.
I know.
So if you're listening, thank you so much for being here today. As always, everything that we talk about is from a marketing perspective. Please remember to download. It's the #1 way you can show some love for us. Listen to the show. Take some advice from it. I hope it helps you. I hope it blesses you. We will talk again soon. Thank you very much.